Hi everyone, welcome to today's episode of Tech Facon. So today we'll be looking into SaaS. What is SaaS? How can we use SaaS? And what is the benefit or purpose of SaaS? And first of all, I will tell you before I say anything or before you start this lecture, make sure you are familiar with CSS. Make sure you've done your CSS class, because if you haven't done your CSS class, taking a SaaS class is going to be like a wasting of time, because everything is, you won't be able to get it. You won't be able to get it. So, well, in TechFacon, we already have a CSS lecture available in our website, so you can go to the CSS class, go to the lecture navigation in TechFacon, and there you can see a lot of CSS class there that you can start with before coming to SaaS. But if you've done your CSS and you want to upgrade and move on to SaaS, so you are welcome. This video is for you. So now, what is the benefit of SaaS? SaaS is also a CSS framework, and everything about SaaS is also, you are still writing your CSS code. But why do I use SaaS? I prefer using SaaS ahead of the direct CSS. Why? Because it gives me an advantage to use a lot of functions. I can use functions in SaaS, and at the same time, SaaS helps me to arrange and organize my code in different ways. And instead of putting all my CSS code in one particular file, I can use SaaS to organize and to arrange them and separate different code that function differently in different files. For instance, now, if I'm writing a code that only work for images, images code will be on a separate file. And if I'm writing a code that only work for buttons, button code will also be on a separate file. So SaaS will help you to do that. You can't use CSS to do that, but SaaS help you to do that. And at the same time, SaaS also helps you to reduce a lot of repetitions. For instance, if you are writing a CSS code and you want to make a background for one particular maybe a link. Now you want to give it a background of white, and you want to make a background for another link, and you want to make the same background to be white. In CSS, you need to redeclare the background white again. But when you are using SaaS, there's no need for doing that. You can just use the SaaS variable, and you can use just one background for everything. It also brings a high level of uniformity to your code. Everything is going to be very, very uniform, because if you are using, depends on your CSS color code you are using. If you are using a color code that is just 0.0% different from the one you used initially, your background code or the color you are using may not be that uniform. So that is just that about that. So now, how can we install SaaS into our system? To install SaaS into our system, you need to first of all have Ruby installed into your machine. You have to first of all have Ruby installed into your machine. So how can you have Ruby installed into your machine? To do that, you need to go to your browser, any browser you are using. Go to your browser and type rubyinstaller.org. rubyinstaller.org. When you type rubyinstaller.org, you're going to have a page like this. If you're having a page like this, you are on the right path. So all you just need to do is just to click the download button. But I'm not going to click this download button because I already have it in my system. So now, download it. Click on this button, download it. Go to your file explorer and install this Ruby in your system. When you've done that, you are good to go. So now, the next thing I want us to do again is, after installing the Ruby in your system and everything has already been set up, so let's check the version of Ruby we have in our system. So I will open command prompt, which is the CMD in my own machine here, and I want to use it to check the version of Ruby I have in my system. So I will type Ruby space -v. V means version. So V means version. So in my system here, I have Ruby 3.3.2. Well, it's not the latest version of Ruby. It's not the latest version of Ruby, but for the sake of this class, we use it that way. So now, if you have this one, when you run this code and you have this one, it means that you have Ruby installed into your system. So the next thing I want us to do again is we can still run everything in our CMD, or if it's a PowerShell you're using, but I prefer using VS Code terminal. I will use my VS Code terminal to run every other thing. So now let's move on to Sass installation. So let's open our VS Code terminal. You open our VS Code terminal and select the folder. Select the folder where you want your Sass to be installed. This is the folder where I want my Sass to be installed. I already have the folder here. Here's the folder. This is where I want my Sass to be installed. So now, after that, what is the next thing? So the next thing is to type jams install Sass. Jam install Sass. So we click on enter. We wait for it a little bit, and the installation will start. It's going to be very, very fast, but depends on your network connection. So mine is running here. Mine is running and installing successfully. It's downloading all the necessary packages. It's downloading all the necessary packages. And good. I have my Sass installed. I have my Sass installed into my machine. So the next thing we have to do again is make sure you are inside your folder, inside the folder where you want to use your Sass. The next thing I want us to do again is to open or create two files. We are creating two files now. One is going to be, one we end with .sass, while one we end with .css. So is that two files that one we hold on to our Sass file, while one will be the general CSS code. One will be the general CSS code. So we do that manually. We're not going to use the terminal this time around. So I will come in here and I will type style.sass, and after typing, do that style.sass. Oh, I think I did that in a wrong file. That one is inside a wrong file. I should have done it here. Okay, so style.sass. Okay, so and now again we need a CSS file again, style.css. Okay, now we have our Sass file and we have our CSS file. What is the next thing to do now? The next thing to do is we want to make sure that these two files can communicate with each other, so that when we write any Sass file, any Sass code, we write any code in this Sass, directly the CSS will pick it up. Directly the CSS will pick it up. So now, how can we do that? And that's where many people get it wrong. But if you are watching this lecture anywhere you are getting it right. So now the next thing to do is we type sass dash sass space dash watch. After watch, we first of all type the name of our Sass file, which is style.sass followed by colon and the name of our CSS file, which is style.css, and we click on enter. So now with this, we've connected our Sass and our CSS file together. So if you write any code in this Sass now, directly our CSS file will pick it up. So this is not all yet, but this is the setup. So in the next video, we're going to work with how to use Sass to start some of our projects. Thank you guys. Thank you for your time. See you guys in the next video.